Hey everybody, this is HD. Welcome back. It is currently Wednesday, December 29th, which means it is one day before New Year's Eve. And I'm super excited about that. I hope you guys all have a great New Year's party planned. This is actually supposed to be Tuesday's HD daily game. I missed Monday, so I did Tuesday. I'm still gonna get 4 out this week, so this is basically Tuesday's game, even though it is Wednesday. And I've had a lot of requests from players and viewers to do more pro games. I'm planning to do a pro broadcast, maybe at least one by this weekend. So I am going to obviously mix it up and still have pro games here or there. I haven't done them in a while. So yes, I will have pro games, and I'll still be doing the daily ladder games. Hopefully you guys enjoy, and yeah, New Year's Eve. I wonder what you guys are all doing. Post down below. Tell me what you guys are planning to do. Myself, I'm actually going to be driving down to Los Angeles, and I'm going to be partying it up. I'm actually leaving Thursday night, or Thursday morning, one of those. I don't exactly recall. My plans are always in flux, in a state of flux. So I'm leaving on one of those days, or on Thursday at some time, and I'm going to be in Los Angeles for about the entire weekend. So I'm going to try to cast as many games as I can until then, until tomorrow night, and yeah, hopefully you guys all enjoy. Anyways, this is going to be a Protoss versus Zerg. I did hop on Pink Bunny, and I decided to play a couple more Protoss games, and I think this is a pretty interesting one. It's a decent Protoss versus Zerg game. Obviously, I'm not a Protoss player. I am a Zerg player at heart. So I hope you guys all who are Protoss and Zerg players take a little bit of something from this. I'm actually planning in this game to do what seems to be a very predominant strategy. Now, you guys actually might be wondering, why the heck do I have 2 pylons? I opened with 1 pylon, and then I suddenly threw up a second one at my natural. Very, very strange, right? Well, I actually saw the Overlord. If you guys rewind this video, I saw the shadow of the Overlord inside my main base just before my opponent, Frank Winsky, just before he pulled it away. And so I thought, you know what, let's try this really cool build that a lot of Protoss players do against me when I'm Zerg, which is a Forge Fast Expand. So yes, I'm going to be a little bit behind because I originally threw my pylon up at my entrance because I didn't know what my opponent's race was. If you guys recall, for all you guys who actually pay attention, it was actually a random race. So this is a Protoss versus Zerg. I found that out once I saw the Overlord kind of scooting its way in and the shadow. And so I decided, let's go ahead and try the Protoss Fast Expand build. And this build is actually very, very good against Zerg. The reason being is that usually as Zerg, you don't want to face off against a Protoss who has even amount of bases on you. And a Protoss player who goes for this Forge Fast Expo, all you do is you throw up a couple of cannons after your Forge, and then you get your Nexus. You're very, very safe from Zerglings. The only thing you have to worry about is some kind of a mass Baneling or mass Roach attack. And really, as long as you have cannons and you have sentries, you can hold off roaches and banelings with proper micro. It is difficult, but if you can get this early edge out, if you can get this early nexus out, you are in such a huge advantage against the Zerg. And if you guys remember my Christmas special against Dopa, the only few things that you can do is either all-in bust or go for a third expo early on. So we'll see how this works out. I am going to be getting this early Nexus, and my strategy here is to actually go for Blink Stalkers, just mass Blink Stalkers. They're very, very powerful, especially when they get +1 and then of course +2 weapons. So you do want to, with those 2 Nexuses that you have, you use your Chrono Boost on your weapon upgrades, you use your Chrono Boost on your Blink upgrade. And of course, early on, you're using Chrono Boost basically on probes. You want to get as much of an economy as you possibly can. And trust me, right now, I have a much stronger economy than the Zerg. The Zerg did not open a fast hatchery. He opened a pool first. And because he opened pool first, he's going to have less economy. And of course, he can't really do any damage to me right now with my cannons at the front. Also, you guys might be thinking, well, you know, Blink Stalker is not really that good if a Zerg goes for mass speedling. That can be true to an extent, but once you get a ton of Blink Stalkers and you have those weapon upgrades, if you blink micro properly, you can, of course, blink the Stalkers that are in the front that are taking damage, blink them to the back. You can deal with Zerglings fairly well. Stalkers are surprisingly resilient. Once they have that blink upgrade with proper micro, they are very, very good. So it's a very powerful unit. And you can actually deal with mutas very easily. If my opponent were to try to go for 2 hatch mutas right now, I would have Blink Stalkers in time. and my Stalkers would be so effective against Mutalisks. So this is a very, very powerful opening, and there's only a couple ways, like I said, for Zerg to deal with that. So we'll see what my opponent does. His name is James Winsky, which I guess his name is James. And I've never actually played against him before, but I'm expecting to see a pretty good game here. As you guys can see, already getting my gateways out and have my warp gate technology on the way. Around the 10-minute mark, that's when you're going to have your Stalkers coming out. I would say even maybe the 9-minute 30-second mark. And hopefully I stick true to that time. As you guys can see, there's a timer on the bottom left. So we'll see what time I exactly get those Stalkers out. But as you guys can also see on the Forge, the +1 weapons are coming. So this is a very, very macro-oriented build. What is that Zealot doing? That is actually supposed to not be there. So if you ever see a Zealot randomly running in your base in your Protoss, and obviously you didn't build any Zealots, then, you know, kill it as a Changeling. Don't want to show your build over to your opponent. So, what was I saying? This was actually a very, very macro-oriented opening. For all of you guys who want to play more macro-style games, in my opinion, this is the real way to play StarCraft 2. It's the way that you actually learn how to deal with your opponent and how to play a long-term game. So this is very, very much an important video, I think. I think a lot of players can take something from this, especially if you're Protoss. You don't always need to play one base against Zerg. You don't need to go 4-gate all the time. I think 4-gate is great. It's nice to have in your arsenal, but if you always use it, you become very predictable. And of course, I'm talking about a high level of competition. If you always use the same build, one base play, then you're not able to really understand the dynamic of going for an early expansion, going for an econ style game. And I guess this kind of carries over for my Zerg play. I'm a Zerg player, I like fast expanding, so I'm going to do it with Protoss, right now. Why not, right? So anyways, as you guys can see, I'm getting my Stalker army out. My Blink is on the way. I do have all my gases mining right now. You need those gases, obviously, for all your upgrades. And of course, you can always mix in a couple of sentries here or there. Actually, I think I might have a little bit extra gas right now, so hopefully I'm going to be able to spend that. And I guess my timing is a little bit late, getting my Stalkers around the 10-minute mark. That's when I'm moving out. So it's just a little bit late. Obviously, I'm not a Protoss player. My timings aren't perfect. But nonetheless, we'll see how effective this is going to be. I'm moving out as soon as my Blink is about to finish. There's the Blink on the Twilight Council, and it just finishes right now. As you guys can see, research complete. So, of course, bringing a probe with my army. This is so important if you're Protoss. You always want to bring a probe with your army so you can put up proxy pylons and continue warping in units. Now, it looks like my opponent, James, wisely throwing up spine crawlers at his front door. And, of course, he did scout me out. He did move a Changeling in. And I think that Zealot right there might actually be a Changeling as well. So, yeah, he does see that I am going for this Blink Stalker build. This is a very popular build at the Diamond level. And the proper way to deal with this, if you're going to be on 2-base, yeah, it looks like he's got Spine Crawlers and Hydras. So he's going to be able to defend against me. But in the long run, I still have the advantage because I'm at 2-base and my Zerg is contained at 2-base. I don't think he snuck a third anywhere yet, but I will check that out, obviously. So really at this point I have a huge advantage because 2-base Protoss is so much better than 2-base Zerg. The Zerg needs a third. I just checked right now. I see that my Zerg opponent still didn't get his gold hatchery. He was very preoccupied with defending the Blink Stalker attack. So now I can safely move back. I have map control. I can move back, pick off the rocks, and go for another Nexus, go for the gold expansion. This is all about that macro mindset. Do note, of course, adjusting to my opponent's play, Stalkers are not so great against Hydras, so I am getting a robotics facility, and I am getting Colossus Tech, the robotics support bay. Obviously, Colossus are very, very good against Hydras, and when you mix it in with Stalkers, it becomes an extremely potent combination. So that's another thing that I hope you guys take away as well, is adjusting to your opponent's play. If you see that your opponent is going for mass Hydras, then what do? You get Colossus out. You can deal with that very easily once you get that Colossus range, of course. If you see your opponent going for Mutas, keep up the Blink Stalkers. Blink Stalkers are great against Mutas. Maybe even pump out some Phoenix, get a couple of Stargates out, and go for Phoenix as well. So I am mixing up my army, getting a couple of zealots here. Charge lots are pretty good against Hydras, and it's a nice addition to your army as well. You don't want to just stick with one kind of unit type. Also, my weapons level 2, as you guys see, is finished. I'm now working weapons level 3. These upgrades are extremely important for Protoss. I would say that weapons are the most important upgrade for the Protoss army. Following that is probably, I would say, armor. Maybe that's wrong. I think shields are good as well. But definitely get weapons first. Now, I am going to try to be a little aggressive, keep my opponent in the back foot. I use the Shift Q blink micro trick here but to blink up my stalkers up to my opponent's main. You do need something to spot. I use the observer to spot up there. As soon as my robotics finished, I got an observer out. And it looks like, though, my opponent is going to be able to defend against it, so I'm going to have to fall back. I guess that attack wasn't really worth it. I only killed off a queen and a spine crawler. But it did keep my opponent on the back foot. He's going to be a little bit more wary now about my blink and possibly blinking up into the Zerg main. And that's going to buy me, of course, a little bit more time to get more Colossus out. Right now, my army composition not exactly equipped to deal with Hydralisks, pure Hydras. I could use maybe 1 or 2 more Colossus. And it looks like my gold expansion is up and operational. Now here we go. My opponent is moving in for an attack. I only have 1 Colossus. And it looks like I might be able to deal with this. I should be able to deal with this at least. The more Colossus are coming out using Chrono Boost, obviously, on that very important robotics facility so I can get more Colossus out. My opponent wisely focusing down the Colossus first. Never want to allow a Protoss player to get a large number of Colossus. That's when they become very difficult to deal with. But it looks like my macro gonna kick in here, getting those new Colossus out. And of course, chrono boosting more, I'm gonna be able to hold off the Zerg attack. And I still have my gold expansion safely mining. So this is all about that macro style play. This is a very, like as you guys can see, a very effective strategy for Protoss versus Zerg. I have the map control, I have the units, I have a safe 3rd expansion, and really I think maybe around now my Zerg opponent might have that 3rd expo, but keep in mind I'm still at 3 base, so it's 3 base versus 3 base. I still have the advantage. Also, it's nice to add on some warp gates around the late game. As a Protoss player, you never know when you're going to need more warp gates, and you usually have a bunch of extra minerals anyways. So throwing down 3 or 4 more warp gates, increasing your number to around 8 or 9 to 10, and you'll be able to warp in a ton of units and keep up with the Zerg macro production rate. So around the late game, I guess you could have around maybe 12 plus warp gates. That's super late game, and it's nice to have that many to warp in units. Now at this point, I'm just continuing the macro. You want, as a Protoss player, you want to get up to 200 before you engage, because a Protoss army at max 200 is always better than a Zerg army at max 200. And of course, with micro, if you can keep your Colossus alive, then even though both of your armies are going to trade, as long as your Colossus remain alive, your opponent won't have the reinforcements or the firepower necessary to deal with your surviving Colossus. So you always want to try to max out your army before you engage, or get as close to max as possible. Timing windows, obviously, an opportunity as well when +3 weapons finish, or when you get some kind of an upgrade to finish. Now, it looks like I'm going to go ahead and move forward just to test my opponent out. It looks like he does have that nice Roach Hydra combination mix. Purely Roaches at this point, though. So my Colossus aren't going to be too effective against that many Roaches. I will have to morph in as many Stalkers as I can. Stalkers, obviously, are pretty decent against Roaches in mass. And it would be nice if I had some sentries here for force field, but there we go. Got a couple sentries, locking out a couple of the Roaches in front. My opponent here is using the Roach Hydra Corruptor combination, and that's actually a really good strategy against the Protoss Ball. Corruptors obviously being used for the Colossus. Now, as you guys can see, I have proxy pylons all over the map. These proxy pylons, they allow me to attack. I can warp in and make use of the Protoss warp technology, warping in a couple of zealots, and on that mini-map on to the left, you guys can see my zealots warped in, and they are going to go ahead and take out this hatchery. All too often, Protoss players don't do that. They don't make use of their pylons and warping, so that's a very effective strategy. My opponent decided not to go over to defend his 4th expansion, and so I am going to just go ahead and engage here. It looks like I have enough of an army to take this out, and this should be a relatively quick GG. The idea right there behind attacking with my zealots over and warping them in is not only do I take out that hatchery, but I can lure my opponent to pull all of his forces to defend. And had he done that, had he pulled all of his forces over to defend that 4th expansion, then I could have just walked my Protoss ball and taken out the gold or taken out the natural. So one way or another, I was going to take out an Expo or do a lot of severe damage. So as you guys can see, that is going to be GG, Frank Winsky. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. This is a pretty standard Protoss build, opening up with mass Blink Stalkers. And usually you actually end the game with pure Blink Stalker. If you don't, then you can always transition out of it, get a nice mixture, get your Colossus rolling. And as you guys can see, a pretty decisive victory. My opponent put up a good fight. Doing a little bit of a cute Blink Micro here, Shift Q Blink Micro. And yeah, hopefully you guys all have a safe New Year's. It is coming up in about 2 days, I believe. So stay safe. I want to see you guys for New Year's 2011. We're going to go ahead and check out the rank of my opponent real quick before we end this video. Frank Winsky, Wisnicki, I can't even pronounce that. But he was a 2300 Zerg, so a very good Zerg at that. And yeah, that's going to be it for me. HD Daily, Ladder 8, Tuesday, which actually Wednesday. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. HD signing out.